New today, former Trump associate Roger Stone maintaining his claims that he may have spoken about WikiLeaks to President Trump during the campaign. Let's take a listen.
There is still no evidence whatsoever of Russian collusion between the Russian state and the Trump campaign involving WikiLeaks.
Have you had any contact with Robert Mueller or his prosecutors?
We have not.
None at all?
That's correct.
Does that suggest to you that you actually are a target? Usually they speak with the witnesses first.
Well, it suggests nothing at all. Again, where is the crime? I've always made it clear that so-called dirty tricks come up to but do not cross the line into illegality.
Now, this comes as the Washington Post reports the president made late-night calls to Stone from a blocked number. Joining me, two former federal prosecutors, Glenn Kirshner and Ben Clements. Glenn is an MSNBC legal analyst, and Ben is the co-author of The Constitution Demands It, the case for the impeachment of Donald Trump. Good to see you both back on the broadcast. Let's get into it here, starting with you, Glenn, because we're going to talk about the Washington Post report in a minute. But your reaction, first off, to what Stone was saying this morning.
You know, Alex, Stone doesn't really contribute much to the dialogue because he is so self-contradictory that I don't think we can credit anything he says. We have to wait to see what Bob Mueller has and what he reveals to the public. But, you know, I think Roger Stone is now in a similar posture to Jerome Corsi, and I suspect he will be indicted very soon. Maybe he will come on board as a cooperating witness, maybe he won't. But we have seen play out over the course of the investigation the different ways that Bob Mueller and prosecutors generally can bring a cooperating witness on board. One is a pre-indictment plea offer. That's what Jerome Corsi was offered. That's a way for aspiring cooperating witnesses to cut their exposure, plead guilty early, and begin to cooperate. However, Jerome Corsi, as we know, has said, I'll die in prison. I'm not pleading guilty. Well, Alex, let's see if he changes his tune once that window closes, and now he will be looking at a post-indictment plea offer. Maybe he'll plead guilty, maybe he won't. But you know what? The third option is the post-trial plea offer, and that's what we saw Manafort avail himself of. And if Corsi and Stone want to go that route, I suspect Bob Mueller will be happy to accommodate them.
What are your thoughts, Ben, on what we heard Roger Stone say?
Well, good morning, Alex. I would certainly agree with Glenn that I would not put credence in anything Roger Stone says. He has a documented history of a liar. He has his own self-proclaimed motto is deny, 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 and that's all he's doing is denying. We have already seen evidence that he did serve as a link between the president and Russia and WikiLeaks. I think more evidence of that will emerge. On the subject of Corsi, there's this assumption that he can be taken at his word, that he has decided not to plead. It may well be just the opposite. He may have been in discussions, and it may have been the special counsel concluded that he was not being truthful and that he was covering up crimes, and that the special counsel was unwilling to go forward with a deal with him. So we don't know exactly what was there, but we do know from the document that was made public, apparently by Corsi, that they do have a lot of evidence linking Corsi and Cohen, Corsi and Stone to this criminal interference in the election.
But look, let's play what Stone said about, really, he's defending his actions to contact Corsi about WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. Here's that. Play it.
And like every politico in America, like every political reporter, I was interested in knowing what exactly they had. But there was no response to that. I mean, if I send you an email saying, George, you should rob a bank, but you don't rob a bank, neither one of us are guilty of robbing a bank.
But Glenn, does that hold up? Because aren't you guilty by association if you work towards a crime?
Yeah, you're not necessarily guilty by association, Alex, but you can attempt to commit a crime, and that's a crime. Every crime on the books has an attempt crime attached to it. So if I attempt to rob a bank and I rent a car to use in the bank robbery, I get a gun, I drive to the bank, but I see the guards outside and I abandon my plans, guess what? I'm guilty of attempted bank robbery. Again, you know, the only thing that Roger Stone adds to the dialogue is really carbon dioxide. Beyond that, there really is no value to anything he says. We have to wait and see what Bob Mueller has.
Well, Ben, he told the Washington Post, quote, that unless Mueller has tape recordings of the phone calls, what would that prove? So if Mueller wanted to prove that these discussions indeed took place, how does he go about doing that if he does not have tape recordings?
Well, he does it through witnesses, and I'm sure we don't know whether he has tape recordings, but there are certainly other witnesses to these conversations. Many of the likely witnesses appear to be cooperating with the special counsel already, but we also know that there are emails, and he has used emails to devastating effect, showing, for example, Cohen's efforts on behalf of the president to secure financing for a tower in Russia, all while he and the president were denying it. And I think you will see eventually a similar trail of emails involving Corsi, some of which we've already seen indications of, and Roger Stone.
All right, Ben Clements and Glenn Kirshner, good to see you both. Thank you, guys. Coming up next, the extraordinary last moments for George